again. And I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the New West Side Partners Friday webinar series. Today, we're joined by State Representative Evan Goyke. And before I let State Representative Goyke speak, I'm going to give a little short story about my first encounter with State Representative Goyke. I stayed at 18th North 40th Street in Milwaukee. I knocked on the door one evening, and it was and he was collecting signatures to get on the ballot so that he could run for the state position. And I told him that I would sign this paper so that he could run. However, I wouldn't vote for him unless I see him again. And long story short, Evan knocked on my door again, and I voted for him. And we've had a great working relationship ever since. And today I'd like to thank State Representative Goyke for taking time out of his busy schedule to have this community discussion with us. State Representative Goyke, can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been in office and give us the boundaries of your district?
Sure. Thank you, Bobby. That was a couple of years ago. For me, a couple pounds ago. I was in 2012, and then sworn in early of 13, and I'm still in office. So that's 7 years ago or 8 years ago that I first ran. The 18th Assembly District incorporates most of the Near West Side, although it does cut Marquette campus in half. So I represent the western portion of Marquette's campus, and then all the way along Wisconsin Avenue to where the city meets Wauwatosa. And then from there north, it includes the Washington Heights neighborhood and a large portion of the Sherman Park neighborhood, Washington Park neighborhood, uptown, and then down back to the Near West Side. And so I live kind of right in the middle of the Near West Side on 27th and State. My wife and I have been in our house. We bought our house in March of 2011. And we are, love it here. We don't want to go anywhere. We've been putting a lot of time and energy into the house. We're going to plant some new flowers and bushes this weekend if the weather cooperates. And I'm very proud that hopefully in June, we have old historic houses on State Street that we're gonna restore the outside so that it looks a little nicer. The inside's nice. We've been doing a lot of work and cleaning and painting, but I will be honest, when you look at the outside, it has a lot of work that needs to be done. And so hopefully the outside's good too coming here and shortly.
Well, that's good to hear. And as a homeowner, I do understand. And thank you for being in our community and being really one of the elected officials that's easily accessible. So I'm going to dive right into the questions now. As you have undoubtedly heard by now, most people are not happy with their property assessments. Some people have experienced increases while others have experienced decreases. And sometimes these disparities are in the same neighborhood. Can you explain to us a little bit about what goes into the property tax assessment from a state perspective?
Yeah, so first, I'm well aware of the issue and experienced my own frustrations. Just so everybody knows, a year ago, my house went down $30,000 in value. This year, it went up $32,000 in value. And I don't know, I didn't do anything remarkable during that time. So Wisconsin state law does require the city, and any city, you live in nowhere in a little town, they still have to assess your real estate value. So this happens everywhere in the state of Wisconsin. And state law requires the city or the town or wherever you live to use what's called fair market value. So what fair market value is really based off of other sales, or what we often call comparable sales. Mm-hmm. And so there's big fluctuations year to year based on what houses sold in and around your house, in your neighborhood. And so in the Near West Side, there's such unique neighborhoods, and each block is unique, that it's really hard to find comparable sales. And so there seems to be more fluctuation in our area because the area is really different. Merrill Park and Concordia and Martin Drive have different houses and different sizes and different ages.
Mm-hmm.
And so the comparables are very different. So I'm thinking about why my house went up and down and up and down. And I've learned it has more to do with the fact that my next door neighbor bought the house, and the price that they paid for that house was used to calculate this year's assessment. I went up, and that last year when I went, the closest comparable sales were for homes that weren't valued.
Sorry, Representative Goyke, are you still there?
And that
Okay.
brought my price down.
Okay.
Yeah, am I freezing?
You froze just for a second there. We're back on topic now. I'm going to just ask a follow-up question. So does this calculation come strictly from the city of Milwaukee, or do the state have something to do with it as well?
All right, now you froze. I think what we're gonna try is follow me. I'm gonna go up and like sit next to my Wi-Fi in my upstairs. Hold on one second. So I'm gonna drop my video just so that everybody doesn't see the dirty laundry that's in my and how badly my hallway needs to get clean. But I'm gonna keep talking. So Bobby, I think your last question was, is that state law that requires that?
No, no. My question was, is the assessment determined strictly by the city, or do the state have some involvement with that when they're collecting these comparable sales?
Just the city.
Just the city of Milwaukee?
Just the city. But the state requires the city to do it.
Okay.
So if you are upset with your assessment, there's a really good website that the city has. Your appeal or your grievance should be filed with the city and only the city. All right, let's see if I'm back on my screen. Everybody seeing my purple bedroom now?
Yeah, great.
Well, welcome. Don't tell my wife. So yeah, the city has a website. If you just look up City of Milwaukee tax assessment, it'll give you everything you need to know about how to contact them, how to appeal your decision. So if people are listening and they feel like their assessment is too high, they can appeal it. Now, one important thing, everybody sees that number, and if your assessment went up, you assume, oh my gosh, my taxes are gonna go up.
That was the next question. I'm glad you got ahead of it.
So
That's what I've been asked by 100 people.
Yes. So the answer is maybe. Maybe it means that your taxes go up. But the way that the city sets its property tax rate is it actually takes the value of the entire city, all of the properties that are taxable within the entire city. So we're talking about, hundreds of thousands of properties worth billions of dollars. And from there, it's divided out into what's called a mill rate, or the rate that they assess on your value. So if Milwaukee has a really, really good year and the value of all the properties around the city go up, it's possible that the rate actually goes down. So it isn't an automatic that your property taxes are going to go up by a certain amount. We will know that in the months ahead.
Okay. My final question about the property assessments, another question that I get often from people talking in the community about this, is this in any way related to the COVID-19 pandemic? No.
State law requires this to be done every single year. And and the state law has not changed that fair market value criteria that the city is required to use.
Okay, thank you for that answer, because you have some people with conspiracies and say, well, the property tax is going to go up because the state lost a lot of money, the city lost a lot of money. So thanks for that answer.
I am not a city representative. I can't answer I don't believe that's true. And I don't believe that the tax rate has been determined to have gone up yet. So just everybody needs to stay tuned. And, I'm someone that has seen it go down and gone up. And if you're around long enough, you're going to see it go down again and go up again. And I don't think it's a bad thing that a lot of our homes are valued higher now than they were a year ago. I've got a lot of pride in the neighborhood. I think my house is worth more than the city still says it is. And so I'm okay. I'm okay with it going up at least as far as it did. But I understand there are other people where it really jumped and it's scary, but I would just ask people not to assume the worst yet, because we don't know that tax rate is going to get higher.
Okay, well, we're gonna switch questions, switch topics, but we're gonna still stick with COVID-19.
Yeah.
In lieu of the state Supreme Court decision, you explain to us a little bit about what's really going on and how should residents proceed?
Yeah, so I thank you. This has been a really topsy-turvy week in Madison in the Capitol. So the Supreme Court, in a 4-3 decision, said that the extension of the stay-at-home order was not lawfully done and it's not enforceable. So practically speaking, the state does not have any stay-at-home order, but local units of government, including the city of Milwaukee, they have put in place their own orders. So for us in Milwaukee, we should think of it as not too much has changed because of what the Supreme Court did.
Okay.
The city's order is a little different than the state's order. It is a little bit more relaxed in what businesses can be opened and how many people can gather. So it is a slight move towards kind of reopening. But for me and my family, we are staying home. We're not, we know that COVID's not gone. We know that Milwaukee continues to be a hotspot. So I think for us in the Near West Side, we need to be mindful that things aren't going to change overnight, even if there is no state law in place, because the city's order is likely going to stay around for at least for a little while.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that people's barbershops, beauticians, or local taverns or eateries are going to reopen?
I think the city's order allows a barbershop or a salon to open. Bars, I don't believe yet. I think that you need to follow the city's health department and the mayor. So that's a great next week webinar to have somebody from the city's health department to go through the details. They also have a pretty good website where they outline what is in the order and what's not. Even if the barbershop opens, it's still going to be under different social distancing guidelines. There's heightened sanitation guidelines. So it's not, even though some of those businesses are going to start to reopen, it's not like we're just going back to the way it was.
Right. Okay. Last question on the COVID-19 in the state of Wisconsin. Evan, could you tell us a little bit, give us some update on how our numbers, are we holding fair or are we trending down? I know Milwaukee is a hot spot, so if you could speak to us about what you know or could share, it'd be great.
Yeah. So we have performed a lot better than many of our Midwestern neighbors, specifically Michigan and Illinois, and then actually some communities in Minnesota had higher numbers. To date, we've had about 11,000 people confirmed and tested positive for COVID-19. We know that number is an under-reporting because not everybody has been able to get tested. You remember a few weeks ago, only the very sick and the highest risk were getting tested.
Correct.
And just so everybody, a very good friend of mine, she got sick and she went to the emergency room because she was having trouble breathing. She's young and healthy other than getting COVID-19, and she was turned away and not allowed to be tested because she just wasn't sick enough. And it lasted 3 weeks. It was really scary for her. And so she will never be counted in that number. And we know there are hundreds or thousands of people that like her that got sick but never got tested. So about, I believe the number is 400, just under 450 people have been have died from COVID-19. So about 11,000 confirmed positives, about 450 people confirmed that have died due to COVID-19. In terms of progress, one of the biggest areas of progress that we've seen is that we've now been able to expand testing to more people. So there's a location at Midtown on 55th, 56th and Capitol, and down at the south side at UMOS on Chase, where you can go and you can get tested for free, whether you have symptoms or not. They are asking that healthy people that have no reason to suspect they're sick to not go. That they'll still test you, but let's keep those tests to people that have symptoms.
Right.
And what increased testing does is really important. It allows us to identify when and if we have flare-ups, and then isolate those individuals that are positive. If you don't know you're positive and you're still out there walking around and going to businesses and everything, that's how it spreads. So educating people through increased testing has been huge. The governor has set a goal that we would be able to perform 85,000 tests a week. Okay. We aren't quite there yet. I believe that right now we're processing about 5,000 a day, and that we will be ramping up to about 8,000 a day. So okay. We're getting closer to hitting that target. The National Guard has been called on, and they are part of the free testing sites in Milwaukee. So we've been able to expand the number of people testing and expand the number of places to test, which has also resulted in more positives. You test more people and more people will test positive.
Exactly.
So yesterday we had the third highest single day number of increases. So there were over 330 positives confirmed yesterday in one day. So that was the third highest ever in one day. At the same time, the percent of people tested that were positive went down.
Okay.
So we were averaging about 10 to 12% of the people tested that test would come back positive. Mm-hmm. Yesterday it was about 6.5%. Okay. So that's a good sign. It's a weird thing to explain, but that's a good sign.
Yeah, one goes up, the other come down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask a question about the accuracy of the test. I've been watching the news, and I know many others have too. And they're here on the news. They're talking about some tests are not really that accurate. The test that we're using here in Wisconsin, what is the accuracy rate of that test, if you know?
I don't know. From all accounts, I've heard that there can be false positives, mm-hmm. and but that I have not heard of any data specifically on the tests that we're using. It's a great question. It's a fair question. I don't have enough information, and I don't want to put a number out there without knowing.
No, I totally understand, and I respect you for not doing that. And that's something that we could find out or a later date or something. Yeah. The important thing is that there are ways for people to get tested.
Correct. For free.
For free. Okay. The next question that I have for you, Evan, can you talk a little bit about or give us an update on division property situation?
Yes. Okay. So a little bit of background for folks. There were a couple stories in the Journal Sentinel now maybe 2 years ago. And the story came from a guy who bought a house, but then didn't actually buy it. He didn't actually have the title. And so somebody came and evicted him. And he's sitting there he's on the north side, and he's sitting there like, how can you evict me from my own house? Well, it turns out that the person claiming to sell it to him didn't have the right to sell it to him and was involved in fraud. And it turns out that this guy was involved in fraud all across the country, and about over 200 properties in the state of Wisconsin, mostly in Milwaukee. And so he was sued by the Department of Justice at the state level. And what happened for the last couple of years is that these houses have been in litigation, and it's been really frustrating for neighbors because we haven't been able to have a landlord, an owner,
right,
to talk about property issues.
Somebody to hold responsible.
Correct. And so I got a house on my block, maybe 6 houses west of me on the south side of State Street. And we had some really challenging tenants, and there were problems that spilled out into the street and into the neighborhood. And we couldn't find who actually owned the house. And so eventually we, worked, the tenants actually moved. And now they can't re-rent the house because this house is involved in this lawsuit. So it's empty. And I know there's a house in Martin Drive where the garbage has piled up, and there's, like cars parked on the lawn and everything. And we just haven't been able to hold anyone accountable for the conditions of the property.
And before you get to the what happened and in a case, just like to ask a question about, were the people that was buying these properties, did they go to a formal title closing, or was this some land purchase contract?
Right. It was somebody doing it, out of the trunk of their car, picking on people that didn't know that they needed to go. That those buyers didn't know what a title company was, or didn't know that you had
that clarity.
Yeah, because so this is a salesman. He would come and say, "Oh, I'll take care of everything. You just sign here. It's fine." And he preyed on people that didn't have more of an education about how the whole process works legally.
Wow.
And so really you had people preyed upon that really were vulnerable. And a lot of these were rent to own contracts, where the renters for a long time thought they were going to own the house, only to learn that was fraudulent. So this lawsuit goes on for a while, and finally the defendants, the bad landlord in this case, has agreed to settle the lawsuit, and the lawsuit will include bringing up all of those properties, the condition of those properties. So I'm talking about now the terms of the settlement. So they're you could think of it as like they're pleading guilty, or they're admitting to fault. And as a condition of that admission of guilt, they are agreeing to fix the properties up and get them to be code compliance. They are paying a pretty hefty fine. I can't remember the dollar amount of the fine, but they also have to pay $350,000 of restitution to the people that got cheated, to those people that thought they bought a house but didn't buy anything. One important reason, and the reason why I'm following this lawsuit very carefully, is 2 years ago, the legislature passed a law that we frequently call the lame duck law. So Governor Evers had been elected in November, but he didn't start till January. So in between then, in December of 2018, there were a number of changes to the law. And one of those changes says that the Department of Justice now needs to get the legislators to say yes to settling lawsuits. Okay, that is kind of a weird law. So the legislature now has to say yes to this lawsuit settlement with these properties in our community. And so I am pretty fired up about getting this deal done so that we can usher in better owners and we can hold people accountable and we can clean up the properties and the blocks. So I'm firing off, every day I'm calling and emailing and sending letters and I took pictures of the house on my block and I sent it to the Republicans saying, look, it's an empty house. We need you to say yes to this. And so hopefully that's something that will be approved in the next couple of weeks so that you guys at the Near West Side Partners can help organize improvements on the block, the kind of improvements that we want to see.
And I think that'd be our pleasure. Can you, just in any kind of way, help us go after zombie properties in a way? Because we have properties here that, we don't exactly know who the owner is, but.
Yeah, we had a big victory now 3 years ago, where we said that those people that had a history of being bad actors, they weren't paying their taxes, they weren't fixing up their properties. We said that they can't go back and buy more properties at the sheriff auction where they were buying them. But what we weren't able to accomplish, where work still needs to continue, is really finding out who these people are. Yeah. Because they can layer and layer and layer
under LLCs,
and we never really know who's responsible. I tried to do that in 2016, 2017, and unfortunately, it got a little political, and the party in power right now said no. I did have a conversation maybe a month ago with a Republican colleague of mine, and actually he came over to my house. He came to Milwaukee to see the problem. And so we actually walked on my block, and I showed him an empty house down the street, and we went up on the porch and went into Sherman Park, went through some empty houses. I bought him lunch at McBob's.
God,
You
good
know,
place.
a little Milwaukee, you know,
Yeah.
fatten him up a little bit.
Right.
And so it was, and so he wants to come back and he wants to see it again. And I think this is the opportunity, and maybe you and I could coordinate, and Near West Side Partners could coordinate to kind of, you know, okay, we did this, it was good, it made progress. Next step, zombie.
We'd love to be a part of that.
Yeah, that would be, I think that would be really effective.
If I could ask you a question, and it's perfectly fine if you don't have any information on this. You talk about the Mohammed Rashid properties that went into receivership. In the community, he has several properties that I get calls on about things. Some people believe that he was supposed to sell the properties. However, it seems like there's no movement. And I just want to know if you had an update or anything that you could share with us.
Yeah, I don't have anything more current. Those rumors are correct, that as part of the court oversight that he was to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. Now, the court ruled that it would be unfair if we made him sell them for $5 or $1. Mm-hmm. So I think what has happened and why it's been really slow is that somebody would offer what they thought was a fair price and he would say no. Mm. And I think he's been also trying to, the rumor was for a while there, he was trying to sell it to his buddies. Yeah. And make sure that he still had his fingers in the pot.
Control.
Yeah, exactly. So I can follow up with the city on that. We've followed it closely for a while there when it was in court, because that's a dozen plus properties in the Near West Side that have been sitting there that need new owners.
Correct. Representative Goyke, is there anything else that you would like to share with us or give us any other updates?
Yeah. Stop calling me representative. Call me Evan, please. You know, I know I'm appearing as a state rep here, but like I said, I'm also a neighbor. We love the Near West Side. We're excited to, you know, put a little bit more blood, sweat, and tears and money into our house this summer, and we just really love it here and are excited. I guess Barb Scotty would say I'd be in trouble if I didn't also put in a plug. The historic Concordia neighborhood. We do a tour of homes every summer.
You guys most certainly do.
But we can't do it this year because of COVID. And so what we're doing is a virtual tour.
Okay.
And so what it's called is From Our Home to Your Screen. Okay. And so stay tuned. June 20th, that's Father's Day weekend, Saturday, June 20th. We're going to go live. We've got John Gerda, who's going to do a history lesson on Concordia and where
that'd be very interesting.
Yeah, history of the neighborhood. And then we've got this technology from a neighbor on Highland Boulevard that allows this like cool 360-degree tour of the house. Even better than the tour you got of my bedroom today. And so it's free. It's accessible. You can stay in your pajamas and tour the historic Concordia neighborhood. And even for neighbors that are on the webinar that are from Martin Drive or Merrill Park or whatever, you know, we all drive past each other's neighborhoods, but take this opportunity to kind of look inside. So June 20th, we'll work with Near West Side Partners to get the information out on how to join, but it's free. Come take a tour of Concordia. Well,
thank you for that update. And we definitely at the Near West Side Partners pushes Concordia historical tour. It is in our neighborhood. We love to see it, and the homes are magnificent. Definitely some hidden jewels. People drive by a lot faster than they should be, but this opportunity to get inside and and see what the architecture structure of them and see what really makes them great.
Yeah.
And again, Evan, thank you for taking time out your busy schedule, coming down and talking with us on this webinar this week. And we look forward to hearing from you at any time. Don't be a stranger. If ever you want to come on, this is a platform for you.
Okay, great. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too, Evan.
Take care.
Thank you. Good job, Bobby.
Thank you.
You guys, can we just do this every week with you two?